And we are live. So, welcome to episode 188 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got John K. Alvarez, the blue and yellow mix night. And so if you have one of those 8 boxes of Crayola, you know exactly what he's talking about.
Ziploc bag.
Exactly. And we've got Eric from Hey Internet Eric here, stopping in to talk a little Arthurian legend. So thank you very much for stopping in as always.
My pleasure.
There we go.
So here we are with a little green. And this is a little different than what we typically cover. There's no horror. There's no action, but this very much falls into the realm of fantasy. But the difference is this is a fantasy drama.
Right.
And so that separates itself from what the typical fantasy is, you know, swords and sorcery, and you've got all of that. You know, you've got witchcraft, and, you know, you've got, you know, blood and, you know, kings and queens and, you know, all these different things. And yet at the same time, it's a fucking drama. And so that takes a lot of people off guard. This is only the second time I've seen it. And we're talking about 2021's The Green Knight. So if you guys are ready, shall we get it going?
Do it to it.
Hi-ho.
Boogie woogie. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to go right to John. I take it you've seen this before. Without going into a great deal of detail, what are your surface feelings about The Green Knight? It got me. Go ahead.
No, actually, I excuse the expression, but like moss, this movie eventually grew on me. I'm not trying to be smartass about it. When I first saw it, I thought it was weird, but I liked it. The second time I saw it, I liked it even more. I'm one of those very strange kids who, back in 8th grade, read the Green Knight epic poem.
Sure.
You know, type deal. And for the life of me,
same.
Trying to figure it out, but enjoying it nonetheless, even though the sisters at my Catholic school were worried about me. That was my choice. But the point about it is, every time I watch this movie, I learn more. I appreciate it more and things like that. It's one of those type things that I'm glad I didn't see it and thought it was a little too weird and ignored it. Every time it came on or every time I saw it, I was like, no, let's watch it again.
For me, just real quick, this is definitely a movie that has gotten enormously better on the second view. It's hard to take in the first time. It was one of those movies I was very much looking forward to, and then I sat down and watched it. I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, it wasn't what I expected. I don't know what I knew what I expected because I had read Sir Gawain in The Green Knight, 100 years ago, and it wasn't that. But we'll taper off. Eric, what do you got for us? The Green Knight.
Well, this was my first watch, and I'm just going to quote Mr. American Werewolf. What the fuck did I just watch? But I think, like what both you guys say, I think, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. I think I will appreciate it more with a second viewing, and I can tell that that's this type of film. I love the medieval themes. I've always loved King Arthur, all that type of stuff. Beautifully shot. Weird as fuck. But what I can appreciate, after we're following up our episode on Arrival, it's so good with so very little. Again, I hate saying it. So very little happening. You know what I mean? It's not like Arrival wasn't aliens shooting shit up. This isn't medieval battles, beheadings, and all that stuff, but it has everything that you think of. Like you said, witchcraft. We have giants, talking foxes, all that stuff. So I enjoyed it. I don't know what I watched because I haven't read the poem, but I'm definitely looking forward to rewatching it and having this discussion because that might help me understand it more.
Yeah.
Eric, can I ask a question, Mike? Eric, you said beautifully shot and what?
What did I don't know. What did I said it's beautiful
really
to look at,
weird,
beautifully
something
shot,
like
but weird as fuck.
That's it. That has to be on the poster. Beautifully shot, excellent, weird as fuck.
Yeah.
Weird as fuck. Right. Yeah. This is, how can I put this? Hold on, I was just looking at something else. Let's start off this way. This movie has, and I've talked about this a lot in terms of underrated performers. And I remember when I talked about the most underrated performers, I talked about Ben Foster. And we all know who Ben Foster is, and we love Ben Foster, and everything that he does. Oh shit, Ben! The minute you see him, fuck, this is gonna be okay. This is gonna be okay.
I see his name in the credits. I'm watching it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh shit, Ben Foster's in this, no problem. I have to say that I'm starting to get the same feeling, and he's kind of crept up on me about Dev Patel.
Yes.
Dev Patel is really fucking solid, man. I mean, if you go back to Slumdog Millionaire, if you've ever seen that, where he must have been like 18 or something like that when that fucking came out. If you've ever seen The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, if you've ever seen The Second Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, it's a sequel. They're comedies set in India where he's playing this over-the-top fucking young Indian kid who owns a hotel. And the second movie isn't as good as the first one, but I still gave it 5 fucking stars. So that's how good the first one was.
Right.
So you've got that. You've got that movie Lion, that he was based on the true story of the Indian kid who was adopted by a family and much later in life is reunited with his biological family in India. You've got a bloodbath of a fucking movie, and it's one of the most fucked up movies I've ever watched, Hotel Mumbai.
Okay.
Which is about the terror attacks. The India's version. Goldie, shut up. It's India's version of Shut up. Goddamn dog.
Obviously, the dog didn't like Mumbai.
India's version, yeah, exactly. Yeah, she didn't like the movie. India's version of 9/11.
Right.
You've got The Man Who Knew Infinity about the math wizard. You've got that show with Jeff Daniels, The Newsroom. He was in that.
Yep.
This guy is just turning into a fucking force.
I've only seen him in one thing other than this. I've heard of everything you've said, but I'm a big fan of the movie Chappie he did.
Yep.
If you've ever seen that.
Yep. No, I haven't.
It's an AI great movie where he creates a robot that basically comes to life and learns to live with gangsters. And it's got Sigourney Weaver, Hugh Jackman. It's very, very good. I absolutely love it.
Okay.
It's from Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9.
Okay, yeah, District 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Highly recommend it.
He was also in a BBC TV show, if I'm not mistaken. The title was called Kids, and they tried to do an American version of it on MTV, but the British one was on for like 2 or 3 years.
That really rough movie.
No. Well, yeah, they tried to make it into a really rough movie, but this was a television show that was on like the BBC, like those 6 increment seasons.
Okay.
He was one of the kids in high school, and that was the first time I saw him. And as good as all those people were, he was head and shoulders above them all.
Okay.
And he was in the least amount of scenes. He's that good of a person. Or
I
should say.
Yeah, he's a fucking hell of a performer. Here, he's playing Gowing. This movie is loaded with ambiguity. Everything is sort of veiled and uncertain. And, there's never like a solid piece of concrete to place your foot on. And that can be offsetting. Because usually, everything is clearly defined in a fantasy movie. You know who the good guys are, you know who the bad guys are, the actions are very well clear. You understand everyone's intention. There might be a betrayal every now and again. This doesn't do any of that. You've got the color green, which, you could see Joe Edgerton's wife talks about, it can represent two things. It can be life or it can represent rot.
Right.
The things that are left over after sort of life passes through them, mold and deterioration and decay and, all these different fucking things. And he plays that perfectly, I think, as this. So he's like a 30-year-old boy.
Right.
He's like, and in the book, Gawain is not, he's not the king's nephew.
Okay.
He's just the knight. And he's a very virtuous knight. This is not that interpretation. Here he is the king's nephew, but he spends no time. Like Arthur is his uncle and he spends no time with him. He's always in the fucking tap house, closing the tap house out, going to bed as the sun is coming up.
He's not even a knight, right?
No, he's not even a knight. He's just, his uncle barely knows him. And he talks to him about that. His uncle takes that as his responsibility.
Right.
He's got a woman, and Essel, seems like a very fine woman. Really likes him, wants him to commit. He can't seem to be bothered. These sorts of things. So he's just this sort of aloof kind of character. His mother, played by Sarita Choudhury, who I personally have been in love with since Mississippi Masala, if you ever saw that fucking movie back in the day. And she's not recognized in the credits as such. She's just credited as mother, but she plays Morgan Le Fay, the Enchantress, usually in the Arthurian legends portrayed as Arthur's sister. And so that's who she's playing here, is kind of sick of his shit. And so she constructs this plan to get him to step into who he is supposed to be.
Okay, because I was very confused again as to why it seemed like she set forth the Green Knight to come to him.
Yes.
And I had no idea it was basically to light a fire under his ass.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I mean, technically, being the way the story set up, him being the nephew of King Arthur, if Arthur, who has no children, he's next in line for the throne.
Right.
Deal. So there was without making it an urgency, there was an urgency.
Okay.
To get him to stand on his own.
Yeah, and in the way he keeps saying, like, I remember when he was the night with his girlfriend, when she was trying to push him in a relationship, I'm not ready yet. And to me, that's a whole theme through this whole show, this whole movie, until he gets ready. He's not ready yet.
Literally till the very end, yeah.
Well, he doesn't know how to do anything.
Right.
He doesn't know how to do anything. Like, he's surrounded by the Knights of the Round Table, and the king Arthur is his uncle. And he can't be bothered.
Did you? What I liked though with Dev Patel is lots of times with his acting, at least that I've noticed, is just all in his face. And I don't know if you guys noticed it, or maybe I looked at it a different way. When Arthur actually said, basically, you've never sat beside me. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And when he has him sit beside him, he just looks so uncomfortable.
Right.
Like you can tell he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want this. Like you could tell, like, he was just itching to push himself out of the chair and then just go hide in the back behind all the other people eating with them.
Yeah. And another good scene right after that is when Arthur asks him to tell a tale, and he says, "I have none to tell."
Yeah.
That whole, it was not even. I'll even go a step further, Eric. He wears his emotion on his whole body. Face goes, the shoulder. He really, it allows it to affect him. And it really is good especially for part of a good storyteller. Or storytelling, I should say.
I loved it. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
No, you just feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. at time, and him not being ready for it, he's not saying a damn word. You don't have to.
It's funny because the weight of the world, to me, the weight of the world kind of isn't on his shoulders. He doesn't have like the slightest thing, outside of his comfort zone, just kind of, he kind of freezes up. He's not the king. He's not a knight or any of these sorts of things. But I think that, in the company of men like this, or, he's obviously a fish out of water.
Right.
And that's a great point too for the storytelling, because even though it's not a traditional or typical like Arthur story, you know everybody who's around that round table. You know the knights, you know Arthur, you just from hearing the stories previously.
Yeah. There's no need for that introduction.
Yeah, right. You don't need to do their backstory. You already know it. So when he walks in, you can tell, oh Christ, I don't want to be here.
And you can also tell the difference in the tone. Like, I love that they portrayed Arthur and Guinevere as not exactly, they're just on the verge of being old.
Right.
And so they're very settled. They're very regal. They're very still. They're very reassuring. And when he says, I have no story to tell, Guinevere speaks up, and I love. She is the mother, if you remember this, from Robert Eggers' The Witch.
Right.
She's the mother from that, and she's just. I thought she was a fantastic Guinevere. She goes, yet.
Right.
You have no stories yet. So they're not trying to knock him down. They're just.
They're trying to motivate him.
Yeah, they're trying to tell him, you can do this. They're trying to be encouraging.
And what I liked about this, like I said, The King Arthur stuff is, the stuff I grew up with, the battles, you know what I mean? Or, like the Disney shit, that type of stuff. But it was, to me, I thought it was neat kind of seeing a weathered looking King Arthur. You know what I mean? This is a guy he doesn't need to do the battles anymore. He's had plenty. He seems tired.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The way, and Guinevere looks tired too. You know what I mean? They just want to sit there and rule their kingdom, and they can't wait, for lack of a better term, to find that successor. That's how I was taking it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool to see, aside from, Arthur always taking the battlefield, lopping heads off and stuff like that.
Well, this Arthur has lopped enough heads off that now he has brought peace to the realm.
Right.
So that they can calmly celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
It's Christmas Day, but it's a very sober. It's a very sober Christmas, and, they're going to make merry in a little bit. For now, let's just, sit down and, just talk, like people are supposed to. And he doesn't know how to do any of that because he's a fall down lush.
Right.
So, I mean, his mother, sends this knight in because his mother is Morgan Le Fay. And I love that Sarita Chowdhury is uncredited as that. She's another actress. If she's in it, I'm fucking watching it because she always makes everything better. She was great in that show, Homeland. She's been great in practically everything. And so, she sends the knight in, the green, and I love that she just kind of writes it out as like a letter of sorts, and then just kind of combusts it. And brings the fucking knight in, and I remember reading the book, and I was like, "That's just a great fucking concept." I'll give you a free shot, but a year later, I'm going to get a free shot too.
Right.
And so people are just like, "What? Okay, sure." Off with your head,
right?
And then the fucking body just stands up like the fucking Undertaker and picks the head up and says, "See you in a year, buddy."
I'm not gonna. My jaw dropped during that scene. First, I love the way the knight looked. You know what I mean? At first, I'm like, he kind of reminded me of like Treebeard. You know what I mean from Lord of the Rings, like when he's in the forest. But when he's on the horse, he looks fucking badass. I love his voice, just the way he looks. But
he ain't Groot.
When no knight was willing to take the shot at him, because basically, you stab him in the gut, he's going to stab you in the gut. You lop off a finger, so on and so forth. But then when I don't remember his name, but when King Arthur's nephew He lops his head off. I'm like, kid, you just fucked yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't realize what you've done. It could have been something simple, like a simple poke to the shoulder, you know you know what I mean? Because fair is fair. But I'm like, oh, dude. Oh, and I'm like, now, is this guy going to go through with it? Like, I know eventually he's going to start his journey. Now I'm wondering where he's going to go. Right. Is he going to do it? And are they willing to have this kid have his head lopped off by the end of the film? So I'm pumped to see where this story is going. Just because he went too hard, you know what I mean, to try to impress the knights and Arthur and Guinevere.
Right. And I had an English teacher at Stockton who turned around and said, when the knight put down his axe and it laid himself open, any person who was a knight would have said, no, that's not honorable. I would have walked away. It showed a lot about him that he was going for the quick kills and it'll be easy and done and over with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he just trimmed off, looking at the picture Mike has up on the screen, trims off just like a little bit of the one root sticking out of the side of his head.
Off the top, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what would happen. I mean, but it shows the fact of his immaturity.
His inexperience.
Not even,
his inexperience. Because he talks to the king. He talks to the king. Arthur says, do you know what you're doing?
Right.
And he's like, immediately he says yes. And then he stops and he's like, I think so. He has no idea what he's doing. He has no idea what he's doing. But the fact that, he has courage.
Right.
He has, because no other, it's a fool's kind of courage, but he has courage because no one else was going to do it. And the fact that Arthur, and I thought this was a huge, I'm not sure what the word is for it. The fact that Arthur let him use Excalibur.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That was an enormous thing. Just this sign of faith that he has in his nephew. Because he's not a bad person.
Right.
He's not a bad person.
Yeah.
He's just kind of aloof.
Right.
He's kind of a cad. And what can we do to straighten this boy up?
Mm-hmm.
And put something in his spine. Because he has that kind of courage. Okay, so if I see that you're going to demonstrate your willingness to do this, then I'm going to support you.
Right.
Even to the extent of giving you my enchanted sword. And you can see how heavy it is for Arthur. He's become so old that he can't lift it without great struggle anymore.
And it's a great way, since Skywin doesn't have a story yet, it's a great way to start his story.
Yes.
Imagine starting it with Excalibur.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because it's that call to adventure that men are supposed to respond to. And he has to have his own journey. Like all these other men have their journey.
It's also a foreshadowing. It's also a foreshadowing moment. He's passing Excalibur to him because eventually he will be,
be the next king. Yeah, which is probably something he hasn't considered even.
Yeah.
But I mean, Lancelot isn't even there. He sits in Lancelot's seat.
Right.
And Lancelot is, even at this advanced age, still off, having adventures.
Okay.
When he said, this seat here is empty, and he goes, it's not my seat. He goes, for today it is. That seat belongs to Lancelot. But, he's off doing his own thing. Very much everybody seems to want to get this boy moving. And his own mother saying, don't waste this.
Mm-hmm.
Don't waste this opportunity. Fantastic storytelling. And like Eric said, every shot, and I said this to him yesterday, every shot is gorgeous, but you have the distinct impression that every shot is deliberate.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like every single thing, and you're just like, fuck,
there's
this
nothing
is beautiful to watch.
There's certain shots, man, even if it's, in my opinion, kind of unnecessary to the story. Like the Giants, for example, because nothing really comes of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a painting. Seeing them behind the clouds, you know what I mean? Just walking is just beautiful to look at. And like Joel Edgerton just on his horse in the fucking woods.
Right.
It looks crisp, clean. elegant, regal, all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, all the set designs, all practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think this had a $15 million budget.
I think so. Yeah,
it's like ridiculously cheap.
Mm-hmm.
It made no money because it hit during COVID.
Yeah,
and it got a very limited release.
I did
and
see. Made for 15, only made like 19.
Yeah, I mean, look how beautiful this thing is to make for 15 million. We were just talking the other day. We talk all the time about how much these movies cost nowadays to make.
Mm-hmm.
200 million, 250 million, 300 million. Look what you can do with $15 million and just giving a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
Oh, and Eric, only because you mentioned the Giants, saying that was a throw. I don't agree that it was a throwaway shot. See, to me, the $15 million we're putting the shot. If Go In took the help from the Giants, then there would be no journey. True. It's like saying there's the Mel Gibson when he did Hamlet was teaching to a bunch of students. Hamlet's father told him that your uncle killed me. If Hamlet went and killed him right away, he would be his right, but there would be no story.
Good point.
That's the reason why it was important to show it. And the fact that the Fox, what did the Fox say? Said get the hell away from him.
Yeah, this is I love that Fox. But I mean, there are just like great lines in here. Like when he's talking to Essel, what does he want? Oh, I want to be great.
Right.
She's like, why do you need to be great? Isn't it enough just to be good? Which I think towards the end of we get to the end of the movie, that's what he arrives at.
Yeah.
He arrives at because we see that, he goes through that imagining in his head of what kind of king he's going to be.
That pissed me off.
Well, it's what kind of king he's going to be if he neglects his responsibility.
Right.
If he doesn't meet this responsibility, if he doesn't meet what he's supposed to do, it's all going to be based on that enchanted sash, this sort of false protection, this safety net. And if he does that, sure, he might live, but for everyone else, it's going to be disaster. And you see that he descends into this sort of evil kind of person, spiting Essel, and taking the child, throwing money at her like she's Judas, marrying a political marriage, bringing war to the kingdom, and having the people like revile him and throw horse shit at him. Like they hate him. He becomes a terrible king.
And that's not the story he wants.
No.
Right. And so, is it more important to be good or is it more important to be great?
Right.
Which is, this journey that he starts at. Like in the book, Gawain is very virtuous. He's already arrived at the virtuous sort of thing. It starts off that way. Here, it's a much longer story arc. And it makes for really good storytelling.
He has to learn.
Yeah.
He
has to learn. And this journey is not simple for him. I mean,
no, it's not.
He gets the shit beaten out of him by those kids. Like he doesn't know how to fight. He has no sense of personal, situational awareness. He can't even see that just go off into these woods.
Yeah.
It's right. Yeah, sure. I'm going to do that. Anybody with like 10 cents and a slide rule could figure that out.
Right.
He's just naive.
It's like leaving suburbia and going into a metropolis.
Yeah.
Like South Central Los Angeles. Going into Compton.
You get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed by it because it's not what you're used to. Type deal.
Yeah, you're right. And that was I love that some of the choices from the director. I love after he gets all of his stuff stolen from the thieves and they tie him up. And it's this great 360-degree shot. Holy shit. Like I had to rewind it a couple times because it's him tied up, bound and gagged and everything. And then we're spinning around. And then, because again, I don't know what I'm getting into. I know it's A24, so it could be anything. You know what I mean? Right. And they're spinning around, and then we just see this skin, this skeleton, same clothes, still bound and gagged. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Is this another skeleton or what? And then we go, we're still turning. We're still turning. And we're back to Gaiwin, and it triggered me. Like, he's thinking if I don't do something, that is going to be me. Like, the skeleton, to my knowledge, was never there. That was just him foreseeing, like, if he doesn't, find a way to get out of this situation, that's where he's going to be. He will become just a skeleton in the woods.
Well, there was a theme of a circle throughout the whole type movie. You had the round table when he stepped into this, that whole spin around, and then went back around the other way, like he reversed time to, get back to him. I mean, there was a couple of that where there were just this circle, like the circle of life. The puppet play, when they were talking about the seasons, it was a round wheel. There was a lot of subtle imagery of round, and it's like the way the seasons go type deal. Spring, summer, autumn, fall, and it's always in that circle thing. And it was so subtle that when he does it, bluntly, you're like, holy shit! I remember the first time seeing it when he did that scene where it spun around like that. I got dizzy.
Yeah,
because I felt like I was on the trip as opposed to just sitting and watching it.
There's another scene that got me dizzy where I think he's just on, I don't know if he's walking or if he's on horseback, but the camera spins literally upside down.
Yeah.
And it was a good throwing you off your feet type of thing, not necessarily sensory overload, but just, making you feel uncomfortable or uneasy about what's maybe to come ahead.
Taking you off your base.
Yeah.
Well, this entire journey is like that. I mean, it's like I said, there's no concrete at any point in the story. There's no sure footing, and it seems like at every step he takes is another fork in the road. He barely survives, the highwaymen who are basically just kids.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting, how, because it showed how dangerous it must have been just to travel back then.
Oh yeah, and then it shows that there kind of is no loyalty among thieves because they leave the female by herself. One guy jumps on the horse and he gets out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, then we get to the Saint Winifred.
Yeah,
where he encounters Saint Winifred, and that is just one of the trippiest.
I love that scene.
Out there. Yeah,
I loved it. Oh, it was so spooky looking. Again, it's nighttime, and you find out she's a ghost and this and that, which I'm totally all for it. This is King Arthur, witches, dragons, all that shit. You know what I mean? But the way it's shot, I felt cold watching this when he's up to the pond or the lake or whatever it is, and it just looks murky and spooky. And then when he dives underneath, I knew he wasn't going to drown, but you still had that little bit, like when he couldn't break the surface, you know what I mean? Still that little bit of okay, what is going to happen to him? And then he finds the skull, and it's just so good. Like it was great having that, we talk horror a lot on this channel, but having that horrific element in this tale of King Arthur and knights and stuff like that. And it looked the part. I love the way it looked.
Yep.
Well, John, go ahead.
No, I'm agreeing. Everything I said, I'm like, I couldn't add more to it.
No, I mean, well, it's another thing in the sense that, he's demonstrating courage and, the willingness to help others because, and John probably knows this, Saint Winifred was a real Christian martyr.
Okay.
And, she decided to break off her engagement to become a nun. And her fiance became so enraged that he decapitated her.
Okay.
So she's considered a Christian martyr. And so, there's the sense that, this troubled spirit can't rest because, of the way that she's been violated. And so that he would come along and, try to give her that rest. And I just thought it was, like when he brings the skull back up, and he places, I think it falls on the floor and it turns into her face again.
Yeah.
And she starts talking to him and, he's kind of tripped out and then he looks again and it becomes the skull again. And then he looks back in the bed that he was laying in and her entire skeleton is there.
Right.
And you're just like there's just, the ambiguity is just everywhere here. It's just
Right.
absolutely everywhere. Fantastic.
And you're right about the whole
Fantastic
courage
filmmaking.
thing, because he could have just said fuck it and walked
Mhm.
past. You know, he did not have to engage with her or make any attempt to help her.
Yeah, and he turned around and said, "Well, what's in it for me?" And she chastised him.
Yeah.
Because you're a knight, you're not
Yeah.
supposed to be asking that.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah. Why would you say? She said something along the lines of, "Why would you ask that?"
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not the correct response.
Yeah, it's your duty to help no matter what, and not not look for anything in return.
It's the 5 points of being a knight, or charity, generosity, courage. I'm trying piety and something else. That's why, if you notice, the knights had stars on them, because that was supposed to be the symbol of it. So it's funny because each of these challenges reminded me of a thing from the knights, what the knight has to carry with him, him to learn. So it's funny because if he does it wrong, they have no qualms in saying, "Well, what's your problem? You know, what's your problem, son? You know, you're not supposed to be doing that." Type deal. I loved that. I really, really did. And that scene, as scary and creepy as it was kind of like the ghost from the past saying, "Boom, screwed that one up."
I think it's also a sign that, and we get as we get to the end of the movie, and we're not there yet. But I mean, that what you're supposed to do really isn't all that complicated,
right?
What you're really ultimately supposed to be doing in life, especially in your role as a man here, in this time, or just in general in life, really isn't all that complicated. If you're complicating it, then if you're complicating it, then you're doing it wrong. Because we get to that point where, I'm jumping all over the place, but it's no big deal. We get to the point where the Green Knight is going to swing the axe at him, and he goes, "Wait a minute!" He goes, "Is this it? Is this all that there is?"
Right.
And the Green Knight just looks at him and says, "What else is there?"
Right.
What else is there but keeping your obligations and meeting your responsibility? You agreed to do this. Like,
what did you expect?
Exactly. Yeah.
I was pretty clear. I said, "Whatever you do to me, I'm going to do to you in a year." It's pretty, well explained and everything.
Yeah.
You cut off my head, okay? See you in a year. He literally says that, doesn't he? Like, "I'll see you in a year."
Yeah.
Creepiest line in the damn movie. Head off his neck. See you in a year. Walks out the door.
It's just a great piece of storytelling, man. Fantastic stuff.
But it adds to the fact of what his ego also adds to it. He keeps thinking how important he is, or what he's doing, and they're saying, "No, it's not. It's this," and that's all it is. It goes back to what you said. I'm sorry, Mike. It goes back to what you said.
No.
It goes back to what you said in the beginning when he was with his woman, and he turned around and said, "I want to be great." He goes, "But can't you? Isn't it okay just to be good?"
Yeah. To be a good man, to be a good person.
Good man.
Yeah.
A great man may not be a very good person.
Right.
We see that all the time in the leaders that take over this or that or whatever. They're great men, and some great women. That doesn't make you a good person.
Right.
It's not the same thing, and he doesn't see that.
That's the thing. There's that old saying: "It doesn't require effort to be good."
Right.
It's so easy.
Well, as we see, we start to get to the Joel Edgerton scene, which is an exchange. I love that how each of these had a title.
Right.
Like the Green Knight was the Christmas game.
Right.
And then there was the meeting with St. Winifred. And then, by the time we get to Joel Edgerton, it's an exchange of winnings. These sorts of things. But of course, again, I forgot about this. We have the giant scene, which I just thought was gorgeous. And I couldn't tell if he was tripping off the mushrooms that he ate.
Right. I loved that scene because, he's in the rain. He's got the fox. I love how the fox just wanted to follow him no matter what. He throws rocks at it. And then it disappears, but then it kind of peeks its head around the other side of the cave. And he's just like, "Okay, fine, fuck it. Come hang out with me." And they're out of food, they're still robbed and everything. And when I saw those mushrooms and him just like grab at him and eat him. I'm like, okay, he's either going to get sick or he's going to trip really, really hard.
Exactly.
And he has that feeling of like, finally, there's something in my stomach. He gives it to the fox, and then he just vomits it out. And then he imagines like moss is covering his hands or something like that. So to me, it made me think like he was becoming the Green Knight or something like that. Like that's how he was tripping out. But
I think the old English term is he was tripping balls. And, he was, because he really was.
Didn't Milton write that when he wrote Paradise Lost? That was part of Paradise Lost, wasn't it?
That's the Lost chapter of Paradise Lost. I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's in my wildest dreams, in terms of cinema, it would be somebody fucking making Paradise Lost. Oh boy, wouldn't that be something? That's just like the ultimate fucking story. Boy, that would be fucking great. But yeah, that's another conversation. An exchange.
Get on it, A24.
That would have to be like a series.
Yeah.
That would have to be a fucking series, huh?
Call it levels. Each level.
Something like that, man. Holy shit, that's a hell of a story. So, I mean, we have the Giants, the exchange of ideas. Here's my question. This is my declaration, and
right.
Do with it what you will. The fox is his mother.
I didn't think of that, but it kind of fits.
She's his shadow. She's his safety net. She keeps him safe.
She's trying to guide him on his way. But then again, like you said, keep him safe because he's not supposed to get on that boat because turn around type of thing. So I get that.
Yeah, all of this was supposed to go a certain way, and immediately it goes bad.
Right.
Like immediately, like the first day, he gets waylaid. All of his money gets taken, all of his food, his weapon. He loses the axe. It's only the gift of Saint Winifred that brings the axe back to him. Like God is there with it. It's like divine intervention. Although, with his mother, there's this element of paganism because she's a witch.
Right.
So it's like there's these dueling things happening, that he's not really in control of much. But my impression was that the fox is his mother, and she's kind of come along to safeguard him the rest of the way, which is good and bad at the same time because he can't be who he is while he's being mothered to death.
Right, got to cut the cord.
Yeah, he's got to cut the cord. And she literally puts that cord around him, that green sash.
Yeah.
While you have this on, nothing will hurt you.
Right.
Right.
And it, like all mothers, it sounds like a great thing, but got to cut the cord, Mom. Gotta fly the nest. Gotta
get rid of the security blanket.
Yeah, you gotta get
remove the sash.
Yeah, which he ultimately and in the very next to last scene, that's exactly what he does.
Right.
And the knight looks at him and says, "Well done."
Right. You became your own man.
Yeah, you are now your own man, and now let's get to it. Off with your head.
John says, he loved that line. See you next year. I loved. Okay, and now off with your head. I love that line because the way he delivered it, he said it with like a smirk on his face, and it's not like the smirk wasn't because
right.
That's how I took it. It wasn't because now I get to chop off your head after you. It was because you've become a man. Yeah. I'm somewhat proud of you, and now you have your story.
Yeah,
right.
That's how I interpret it.
I just took it of him saying, now off with you, with your head.
Yeah, because you can see that, the fox is like don't do this. Like, turn around. Like, you can just go back and make up whatever story you want to do.
Right.
I'm not going to tell anybody.
Right.
Exactly.
I'll never, rat you out. It'll be your story. And he has that sort of vision of what the world would be like if he goes back with that lie.
Yeah.
And it's just disaster.
Horrific.
Yeah, it's disaster. He becomes a terrible king.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, because I didn't know if that was a dream sequence or not, obviously. And man, I ended up hating him so much during that whole sequence. Like, it's not just the fact that he became, air quotes, a terrible king, just the fact that he left his woman after just giving birth, and like he just tosses change at her like she's, the common whore. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like the way that door slams on her as she's crawling for him.
Yeah,
just like
with the baby.
you turn not into just a bad king, you turn into a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and he had a political marriage.
Yeah, and I was just furious watching that.
He wasn't his own man. He just became
part of the system.
Yeah,
he became part of the system. Yeah, he became part of the system.
You're beneath me now.
Yeah, yeah. She's not good enough.
Right. Exactly.
She still is no longer good enough.
Exactly.
I mean, the Edgerton thing is a little weird. With the wife, and but he leaves.
Right. If there's anything in this film that I would say I didn't like, is the stuff not necessarily with Edgerton, because I'm a big Edgerton fan. I love Joel Edgerton, and anything I see him. He was great in this. I thought he was cool. He was so good. And Mike, I sent you the trailer for the movie The Gift he's in with Jason Bateman. He's really good in that. He wrote and directed that. He's in a movie called Bright with Will Smith on Netflix.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good.
He was the orc. He was the orc.
Yeah.
And he is really good. I think maybe she's necessary, but maybe if you cut the wife out or cut her part down a little bit, I personally think it would have flowed a little bit, because I think that's where the movie kind of slowed down for me. Because to me, it's like this, this big build up, and then we kind of hit a wall, and we're just staying there for a little bit until he leaves. But that's just me and like my first watch.
Yeah, but to me, I felt it necessary only because of the fact when she seduced him and said, "You're no knight," because the whole chastity thing, type deal. That's another thing of the knight.
Okay.
Also, she's the one. She also gave a really good definition of what the green Knight symbolizes. That even no matter what you do, your footprints will be filled with moss. Your tombstone will be covered with green. It's life going on no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Type deal. Now, if you're making it less of that or less points of that, okay, I can see that. But it was an important character, especially for the development of the main character, of Gawain.
Okay.
And you needed to have that other person. And she was more also ethereal, like her mother, but not like her mother. Or like, Morgana Le Fay, but not Morgana. I love the fact they had the same actors that played his girlfriend.
I thought so.
Yeah, that was the same. And I loved that because there was a similarness in the seduction, so to speak. Of course, he was going to give in to her. You look like my girl.
Yeah.
And then what's the first thing she does is, "You're no knight."
Yeah.
He also reneges on the deal of exchange.
Yeah, he does.
Joel Edgerton gives him the fox, but he doesn't give him the sash.
Right.
He holds on to it. He holds on to that protection.
Yep.
So he's not there. He's not there yet.
He's still afraid.
Yeah, he's still afraid.
And
I thought the point of the giants was that he's still afraid. Like the giant, he said, "Hey, please give us a ride. Save us many days walk. Or travel." And the giant goes to pick him up, and he he gets what he's asking for, but then when it's about to happen, he becomes afraid of it.
It's like when you have this great opportunity in front of you, but you're afraid to make that jump.
Yeah,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He gets paralyzed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that happens to people. They say there's what's that old saying? Nothing harder than being given your opportunity.
Right.
Nothing harder than being given. I remember I love this version. There's a '90s version of Great Expectations.
Okay.
With Ethan Hawke and Gwyneth Paltrow. This was
And
before
Robert De
Paltrow.
Niro.
Yeah, De Niro's in it.
Okay.
Chris Cooper is in it, and he's Ethan Hawke's like a surrogate father.
Okay.
Right.
And Ethan Hawke's about to take off because he's been given this opportunity because he's an artist, and he's like, "I don't know about this." And Chris Cooper looks at it. Chris Cooper's like a fisherman. He's a laborer. He's a common man. And he goes, "Hey man," he goes, "There's nothing tougher than being given your chance." And then he looks at Ethan Hawke and he goes, "At least that's what they tell me."
There's I'm trying to remember the movie. There was a movie with Oscar Isaac that was in it where he turned around and said, "When you're afraid to make that leap, that's when you leap." Type deal. And I forget what it was. He goes, if you don't, you're just going to stay exactly where everybody thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
When you're afraid to make the leap, you make the leap.
That's where you gotta go.
You can't move forward if you don't leap.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the other one? A ship is not meant to be in the dock. It's supposed to sail in the unknown. Same thing.
So we finally get to the voyage home, and and I love the scene where he arrives and the fucking Green Knight is just hibernating.
Yeah,
it's just sitting there, and its eyes are slightly open, and they're awesome fucking practical effects.
Yeah, I loved. We'll go back to Joel Edgerton. I loved how he was just so fucking friendly. You know what I mean? No. You wait 3 days. I'll go out and hunt. I'll take care of it, and then. It's closer than you think. You'll make there in a day's time, type of thing. So what I liked is, if you think about it, if he didn't stay with Joel and his wife, and he got there earlier, he'd just be fucking sitting there for 3 days for that guy to wake up. You know what I mean? So I thought that was kind of cool too.
Well, that's the whole point of temptation.
Right.
Temptation isn't going to turn you down. It's going to make you an inviting offer. That kind of thing. So, he shows up, and then shooting, when the sun comes up on Christmas morning.
Merry Christmas.
Exactly.
Santa's ready.
It was like Scrooge. Is it Christmas Day?
Yeah.
Yes. And he walks down, and I love boom, down the side. He picks up that fucking axe, and
let's get on with it then. That type of thing.
Yeah,
let's get to it.
We've been waiting a year. Let's fucking get to it. And, lo and behold, he's not fucking ready.
It just makes me wonder, do you think he was hibernating for that entire year after he left the castle? The Green Knight. Yeah, okay.
Oh, I think he just saw Gawain coming up and said, "Hey, I'm going to fuck with him and sleep." let me see what he does.
Well, the Green Knight is the conjuring of his mother.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Knight is the conjuring of his mother. So I'm sure very specifically on the 25th, although and I'm convinced that the fox is his mother who told him to turn around. Maybe she, because, I want you to go, but I only want you to go so far. That's
a good analogy, thinking that the queen or the mother is actually the fox, because she wanted to, like we said, she wanted to light that fire under his ass. You know what I mean? She wants him to have his story, find a purpose in life other than just, banging your girlfriend and getting drunk.
Right.
But she probably didn't realize he was going to lop off the head of the Green Knight. So she's like, okay, honey, you proved yourself. It's okay. Let's go back. Because, I've never read the story. I don't know the relationship between him and his mom, but I don't think she wanted him to die. You know what I mean? She did not. I didn't interpret that she sent him off to his death. He caused that by being, too quick to impress Arthur and the rest of the knights.
Right.
I don't think she thought he would get this far.
Okay.
That was my impression. I don't think she believed he would get this far. And then when he got right to the threshold, that's when the fox started talking and saying, look, you can just make up any story you want, but don't go over there, because this is the part where it's out of her control.
Right.
This is the part that's, not up to her. That thing is going to pick up that axe and right. That's the difference, I think, in separating the world of men from women. He has to go meet that thing. And she doesn't understand that, however well intended. She just wants to keep him safe.
Right.
And again, it isn't until he sees the alternative. It's almost like It's a Wonderful Life. Where he looks into the future and he sees what the world is going to be if he doesn't do this thing.
If he never existed, this person would have died. This person would have died.
Would have fallen apart. People would be in jail.
If he didn't accept his destiny, it would have went. If I went, I can't do this, and runs away from it.
That's what happened. Yeah, that's
He,
what
he
Bill
was
said
weak.
about. That's what Bill said when we talked about
Yeah.
that. You always have that hero's arc.
Right.
Where you're going to go in that cave and slay that dragon,
Yeah.
and you're going to come out changed and come home,
Right.
and all this other shit. He goes, but
Right.
there was another thing, which is that you do have a destiny, and if you try to fight against it, you're going to suffer.
Right.
So there's a bit of both in here.
Right.
There's a bit of both.
Well, when he got up from getting the first time to get the head lopped off, I can't do this. He was showing weakness, and even for the future that you saw, he was weak. He didn't stay with the girl he was in love with who had his child. Here, take the money. I'm doing a political marriage. It was all out of to make sure everything's fine. It was weak. He wasn't standing on his own feet.
Well, yeah, because during the entirety of that reign, he had that sash around his waist.
Right.
He still had that tie,
right.
that cord, that
right.
safety, that safety harness, around. And then, he finally has the revelation. Oh my God, I've got to, this has to change.
I got to stand.
He pulls it off and says, and then the knight says, okay, good job.
Yep.
You finally acknowledge what you passed the test.
Yeah, he was proud of him.
Yeah. You took the first step of being a man.
Now,
here's being a knight.
Here's the question, and I don't think it's much of a question, really. Does the knight lop off his head? I'm inclined to say no. It was enough to pass the test, because it ends on an ambiguous note. He just says, now off with your head. So does he? Is he a literalist about it and literally makes him repay the debt, or is it a figurative expression saying,
I think I already told you, but I agree. I think when he said now off with your head, it was more like now go off, go as a way of saying go forth.
I don't know if you saw this, but you probably didn't. There's a post-credit scene in this movie.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
There's a post-credit scene where there's a little girl, tiny, maybe an 8, 6 or 7 years old or something like that, and she's laying on the floor inside what looks like the castle, playing with the king's crown. And the director admitted it ends on an ambiguous note. He said he shot a more definitive one, but he ended up going with this. But I think that it was enough simply to pass the test and have the courage.
Right.
And I think he ends up becoming a good king.
Right.
Maybe even raising, has that kid with Essel.
I didn't even consider that until you just brought it up, because initially I thought he lopped his head off. You know what I mean? To have his story, because you can have a great story and not have a happy ending. So that's what I thought it was.
You can die and have a great story.
But now that you mention it, I think I don't know, but there is definitely room for interpretation that he swung the axe and it just came like right above his head. Okay, boy, you did good. Now go ahead and tell your tale, type of thing. And that little girl with the crown could have been his daughter.
Because I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'm still undecided now that I think about it. But either way, I think they would have been satisfying endings, whether he did die or not, because it's still a great story for future knights, and how it is. People sing to tell the tale of Gawain, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Now, when he left before getting cut, and you saw that future version, they had a son, right?
Yes, they had a son, and the son died in battle, I believe.
Right. That's okay, but that's the thing to me. If the female child is his daughter, that shows the changes have already come. The child that Gawain had with his lady, instead of a son, it was a girl. That means the changes have already been made. Type deal for that future. That future will now be untold, so to speak. I kind of like that, because I do like the ambiguity of it. I've seen people argue over this left and right. Did he get his head lopped off, or did he, get up and walk away? And I would love that, because I think the director kind of dropped a hint saying, yeah, and it's going to be different, in case A24 wants me to do a sequel. Type deal. But
So,
go ahead, Mike. No, go
no,
ahead.
no.
I'm serious. That was it. I was just getting ready to say so and adjust my computer because my computer's falling off the table and sitting on. That's why I'm moving my screen around. Sorry.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not thinking too hard about it. I think he. If you're Eric would remember this, and maybe you two would too, John. There's a scene, and I can't believe I'm going to bring this up. The Exorcist 2.
Oh God.
Remember, but there's this 5-minute gold scene. I mean, it's just solid gold, it's like platinum,
Right.
where Richard Burton meets James Earl Jones.
Oh yeah, when he's walking
And
on the spikes.
he has to step on. Yeah, he's like, "How can I reach you?" It's like 10 feet, and it's just like a whole walkway full of spikes. But the willingness to endure the pain is enough to pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
Like Indiana Jones stepping off into faith in the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of the ground, sort of appears under his feet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the kind of story we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
I think he succeeds. Obviously he passes the test, but I think he lives.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he lives. All right. Is there anything that we did not get into?
No, I think we actually covered it all.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
I mean, I really do.
All right. Okay. Well, then this. Let's get to the part in the stream where we rate the movie.
Bye-bye.
This, huh?
Ta-da! I'm giving you a fanfare. Since we were doing nights, I was giving you a fanfare.
Gotcha. Well, hold on a second. This channel has a rating system that goes from 0 all the way to 5, up by half. So 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5, all the way to 5. So 0, for example, would be I'd rather pull all my nose hair out and watch this movie again. All the way to 5, which is like, this is the destination, this is cinema, this is the whole reason that I talk about movies in the first place. I will say before, because I always go last, and I'm going to go last this time. When we were talking about this with Arrival, in a perfect world, this would be the type of movie that this channel would discuss all the time. John, the blue and yellow mixed night. What would you give the Green Knight?
Man, I have been thinking about this all day since I rewatched it this afternoon. And because, like I said, when I first saw it, I thought it was a little weird. But each time I saw it, I like it more.
I had a tough time too, John, too. Trust me.
Me, I'm going to give it, it's going to be weird, Michael, and my apologies. A 4.5 with the potential of going higher.
Okay.
Because every time I see it, I learn more and it gets higher. So, like the first time I saw it, I gave it a solid 3. But then more and more, I'm up to like a 4.5. I'm not at 5 yet. But I bet you 10 to 1 with 2 more watchings, I'm going to be like, why the hell am I holding it back?
All right. Eric, what do you got for the Green Knight? What do you say?
Well, like I just
told you?
Like I just told John, this was hard for me. Okay. I did not know for a lot of this movie, I said, what the fuck did I just watch? I didn't know what I was going to rank it. At first, before the conversation, because when you have a good conversation, it can make you appreciate a movie a lot better.
Exactly.
And at first, I was thinking 3.5 because of how confused I was. I didn't know the source material and stuff like that. But then I was like thinking to myself, like at work, I'm like, I can't fucking rank it the same as Highlander. You know what I mean?
That would be a fucking travesty. Yeah, that would be a fucking travesty.
Yeah.
With the help of this conversation and the way you guys have made me think some things, even though this is the first time watching, it definitely requires a second. I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
Based on a first time watch, because I do think, like I said, the Joel Edgerton and his wife scene that could have been cut down a little bit. But with John's, interpretation of what she was saying to him, it did help me understand it. And I'll rank it a little higher next time. But as of right now, solid 4.
4. Okay.
Eric, I'll let you know. I was actually thinking of a 4 till after this conversation. So I brought up another half a point. So we're on the same wavelength.
It's definitely better than Highlander. We'll give it that.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because in a world like that, it would be like his vision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where you put the Green Knight and Highlander together, like, worlds would be fucking colliding, and it'd be like some fucking cosmic catastrophe.
Although I wouldn't mind seeing Clancy Brown as the actual Green Knight or something like that. I think he would be an interesting interpretation.
I told you last week there was an 80s version of the Green Knight where Sean Connery was the Green Knight.
Yeah, I don't think that's before I get to my own rating, I should mention that I recently purchased a really solid Sean Connery movie, and you would know this, John, Outland.
I've seen it.
There you go.
Oh man, that's a good fucking movie.
That is such an underrated science fiction movie from the 80s.
It's Peter Boyle is the villain, isn't it? It's Peter Boyle, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Holy shit, that was like the most range I'd ever seen out of Connery.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it once. It was like back in like high school or whatever. But it's like that's the one where he's like a security guard or something, or prison guard,
and like marshal. He's a marshal
in like a space station. Yeah.
And Peter Boyle has been giving these people amphetamines, and to boost productivity, and they're all having psychotic breaks.
Right.
Yeah. Like the big business doesn't give a fuck about the people, and Connery wants to shed the light into it, and it turns into a big fucking fight.
There was a director I worked with in my younger career who turned around, and when I said that movie, he said, "Oh my God, that's the only real space Western I love."
Yeah.
Because it was like the space station was the town, he was the
marshal. High noon. It's like high noon.
That's what he was calling, was high noon.
Yeah, because everyone else just deserts.
Oh God, yeah.
None of his deputies will help him. The only person helping is that one doctor. I think, something along those lines.
And those two were funny together, man.
Yeah. What a great fucking movie.
There's a movie you should be thinking about doing.
I just found a copy on DVD. I bought it for like $3 or something like that. We should cover it one of these days. I don't know that it's available to stream. That's the problem.
I'll find it. I got to know somebody who has it, man. I'll make sure I see it.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so for my rating on this film, I'm going to go with a 4.5. Which, it's cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like,
he's thinking, yeah.
Where's the flaw for me?
Mm-hmm.
For me, I know you said, there's a drag right there with Edgerton, but I understanding, or at least my interpretation of, what I understand it to mean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm not giving it a 5. So I think I'm going to change that. I'm going to go to 5.
He was the same with Pinocchio. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no argument against it for me.
Right.
There's no argument against it, to say, and I love the ambiguous ending.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you don't know for certain, if that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
It's got phenomenal casting. I loved Arthur and Guinevere. I love Sarita Chowdhury. Dev Patel knocks it out of the park.
Yeah, I definitely want to see more of his work. Because like I said, I've only seen Chappie, but I definitely want to see more of Dev's work.
If the girl who played Essel, Edgerton, the guy who played the Green Knight, was fucking great.
Yep.
Beautiful, perfect fucking, like every frame is like fucking perfect. So yeah, I'm going to go with 5. I'm going to give it a 5. So I've got a 4.5, a 4, and a 5. All right, so that works out. Out. All right. Anybody got anything to plug? Eric, what do you got?
I've still taken time off from my channel because that shitty Shark Week stuff was a bad idea, and I'm still recovering. But I will plug something. My YouTube channel is Hey Internet Eric here. But every Tuesday nights on the Night Watch Zone, we have been doing something called Battle World, and what that is we take 2 films and we have them battle it out, so to say, by categories. Which has the better poster? Which has the better tagline? The better acting? And yes, we've done some movies that Mike would never in a million years discuss on his channel, but we've also done some really fun ones lately, like James Cameron's Aliens versus the original Predator. We have done the original Terminator versus the original RoboCop, and just added them up just to see which would air quotes be the better movie. And it's a lot of fun just based on like if you really want Terminator to win, like for example, but you have to admit that RoboCop trumps it in this category type of thing, and then we score it up, and it's a lot of fun. So every Tuesday nights we do that.
So in other words, we couldn't have a battle on this channel between Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula and Vampire in Brooklyn.
I'm not going to speak for Mike, but I'm pretty sure he is going to kick you out of the
pretty much.
Getting bounced. In a universe of infinite possibilities, technically that is possible. You have a better chance of selling yesterday's newspaper, though, than actually bringing that to bear. So, yeah, that's about as honest an answer as I could give you. Yes, within the spectrum of polite conversation. So that's
Look at you having polite conversation. Good for you, buddy.
Yeah. There's always room for improvement, right? So all right.
That's your tale to tell.
Indeed.
Off with your head.
Yeah.
I was drinking, you dick.
Sorry.
No, that's funny.
All right, so we will be back tomorrow for a motherfucker of a show. If you're not aware of it, on Friday, big horror movies being dropped. I see a lot of people on social media are talking about it. We're talking about The Last Voyage of the Demeter. There's a new Dracula film that's dropping, and it's based on a single chapter from Stoker's novel, which is about the Russian ship, the Demeter, that leaves from Transylvania to England as Dracula leaves Harker at the castle and makes his way to the New World. If you know the story, then you know by the time it lands in England, all the crew are dead. And the story is told basically through newspaper clippings in this chapter and the captain's journal, as people one by one slowly begin to disappear every night until finally it ends in this final confrontation. The captain is the one man left. And in the book, when they find the ship abandoned, the captain has lashed himself to the wheel. So that is happening on Friday. But in order to sort of give it a wet our whistles for some new vampire flicks, we're going to be talking about our top 5 favorite vampire movies. There's going to be 6 of us.
Oh, wow. Holy shit.
Yeah, there's going to be 6 of us. So we've got 30 fucking movies to talk about.
In under 20 minutes.
Yeah, in under 20 minutes. Yeah.
Son of a bitch.
It's going to be a YouTube clip. So, YouTube short. It's going to be YouTube short. So, we are looking forward to that. We're going to be talking some serious fucking vampire movies tomorrow here, this channel, 8 p.m. Be there or be square. All right. My thanks once again to John K. Alvarez, to Eric from Hey Internet, Eric here. And we will see you this time tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.
Cheers.
Watch good movies.